we're now going to jump into the patient's record. In order for a patient to be able to receive e-prescriptions or to have e-prescriptions created for them, the patient must have an IHI. They also should really have a mobile number or email address populated within the record. It isn't a requirement to have a mobile number or an email address in order to do e-prescribing. However, the IHI is what identifies the patient across all of the dispensing and prescribing systems. So this is mandatory. Within the patient's record, the prescriber or the administrative staff can express an option for the patient's preference towards an SMS e-prescription, an email e-prescription, or a regular printed script. This defaults the option of prescribing towards the patient's preference, but it can definitely be overridden by the prescriber when they're prescribing. So for this patient, I'm just going to set it to SMS. So beyond the IHI, that's really the only information that's required for a patient to be eligible for e-prescribing. So with that, I'm just going to jump into prescribing a medication using e-prescribing. The first medication I'm going to prescribe is endone, because I'd like to show SafeScript. So for all jurisdictions other than WA, SafeScript has been enabled within Communicare. What that allows you to do is get the feedback from your local jurisdiction's real-time prescription monitoring platform. Western Australia doesn't currently have an implemented platform, but every other jurisdiction does. When you're prescribing a Schedule 8 medicine due to the increased rules around Schedule 8's prescribing, the user is required to re-authenticate to confirm that it is the prescriber who is trying to prescribe the medication. This is for added security when you're prescribing a Schedule 8 and only affects Schedule 8 medicines. Before I go through the form, I'd just like to show you what happens. For people that aren't familiar with it, Communicare is now doing a check on the patient's record with a real-time prescription monitoring platform. This shows that no medicines were prescribed within the last 90 days from different practices. This tick would be amber or red, depending on the record of the patient. There's also a deep link here, which allows the prescriber to click into the real-time prescription monitoring portal. This is customized per state. So if you're in New South Wales or Queensland, the link will be different. Okay, I'm going to go into prescribing a medication. There have been some changes to our prescription form to enable e-prescribing, which I'm just going to show you now. So for Schedule 8 medicines, where there's more than one repeat, or more than 0 repeats, sorry, you now are required to specify an interval between the repeats. So this tells the dispenser how soon after the original script is the dispenser able to dispense another instance of the script. So you can specify 5 days, whichever is relevant. Previously, Regulation 24, and now called Regulation 49, that enables you to specify that the script should be dispensed in one go. Previously, you might have free text written this on a paper script. The purpose of this is to send through that information in a structured form to the dispenser. There's an additional option here for script to be retained by pharmacy, and this is relevant for some Schedule 8 or controlled medicines, such as dexamphetamine, or maybe some other Schedule 8 medicines. This prevents the pharmacist from reissuing a new repeat to the patient and makes the patient have to come back to that particular pharmacy to get repeats of the medication. In addition to the above, we've introduced route of administration. The route of administration is auto-populated from the MIMS data for the particular medication form that you're prescribing. You can override the route of administration if it's required. There's a specific reason to do so, or you are able to use the little X here to leave it blank. This doesn't have to be populated, like I said, and it automatically populates for you when you're prescribing. Rochelle, yeah, so if this script is to be retained by pharmacy, the patient can still take the script to any pharmacy they want. What that means is that if that's ticked, the pharmacy has to keep the repeats. So it doesn't prevent the patient from choosing the pharmacy, and if not selected, they can definitely take the script to any pharmacy. The repeats would be recorded in the system, yes. Rochelle, I might come back to your question if there's more to it. Unusual dose has also been introduced, which is an emphasis on the dosage instructions provided. Usually you would indicate this where it falls outside of the clinical, the normal therapeutic range. We've renamed these authority numbers to be PBS or RPBS authority number and approval number to be more clear as to their purpose. The comments field has been renamed to internal comments because of the new note to pharmacist field. Note to pharmacist is a free text field that can have any information in it that you would like the prescription to include. When the pharmacist pulls up the record of the medication in their dispensing system, this will be visible to the dispenser. So any information related to the dispensation of the medication should be put in here. Internal comments is used for things that you would only want within Communicare. Alternatively, though, the internal comments are printed on medication requests, but they're also generated from Communicare. They don't get sent to ERX with an e-prescription. There's kind of different use cases for both of these, which is why they still both exist. So normally we would suggest you choose a clinical item reason for prescribing. E-prescriptions do require the option of including a free text reason for prescription where the reason wasn't included in a clinical item because the clinical item doesn't exist. So where the prescriber is unable to find a reason for prescribing amongst the clinical items, they're able to put a free text reason for prescription in the reason field here. Authorization number for controlled substances. This changes based off of the state that you're in. So in different states, it'll be authorization number. In another state, it'll be warrant number. So based off of your encounter place configuration, this field will be updated with the correct name for your state. Effectively, it's used where there's a secondary approval that needs to be sought from a state poisons body in order to prescribe the medication. Some examples might be Roaccutane, but yeah, it just depends on the medicine and it depends on the jurisdiction as to whether or not the field needs to be populated. None of these fields are mandatory. You definitely don't have to populate them if you don't wish to. They're just there for when it does arise. For New South Wales, there's an additional field called dispensing pharmacy. Within here, you specify the specific pharmacy you would like to dispense the medication. This is only a requirement in the New South Wales jurisdiction. It is used primarily for when there's a dosing point for methadone treatment, and it's to stop the incorrect pharmacy dispensing the medication where the patient should be attending a particular pharmacy for dosing. Urgent supply is a confirmation of an approval given over the phone to a pharmacist to dispense medications where the prescriber doesn't have access to the prescribing system. So if you got a call and you were off duty and didn't have access to Communicare and you'd given verbal authority over the phone to the pharmacist and you would select this later on so the pharmacist could reconcile their records with having dispensed something with verbal authority. So, yep. I think that covers the list here. I'm just going to quickly have a scan for questions.
Just Judith Murray's question, Jack, if including a reason for prescribing, will that then include this as a diagnosis in the patient record?
So if a reason clinical item is chosen, it does. And if you added a reason there, it does. The reason free text here is only visible on the medication record. So it'll be visible on the RX prescription, but it isn't added as a clinical item. There's no, because there's not really a way for us to convert this into a clinical item. So yeah, it is visible within the clinical record in the prescription, but not in another way. But if you're adding a reason like this, I think it will.
And then from Ross James, do text shortcuts work in the dosage instructions, internal comments, note to pharmacists, or reason fields?
When you say text shortcuts, I probably need to confirm you don't mean the short codes, which are like TID. You're talking about the like .abdo also, or those sorts of shortcuts.
Ross?
Yeah. At this stage, that's not, but I can definitely have a look into what that would look like, because I can see what you're saying. Be some good options there that we can have a look into that. Sorry, go.
Sorry, Jack, you go.
There isn't an item on the moment for the address book entry for the dispensing pharmacy. We can also have a look into that as well. Return to pharmacy and return to patient previous authority. These are PBS approval related items. So return to patient, it's not really used anymore, but as I understand it, when you used to send the paper approvals or paper authorities at the bottom of the script to Services Australia, where you wanted a copy to be sent back to the patient, you would specify this. Previous authority, though, that just means that the PBS approval has been given for this item in the past. So when you re-prescribe and it's had a previous approval, this would be automatically ticked.
We're good with the questions, Jack. Thanks.
Cool. I think that may have been because I went back before. Okay. Okay. So just quickly, we have also added the route option, the option for route onto the medication summary screen preceding dosage. We've also enabled the option of reordering the columns in the medication summary. The build that I have doesn't have that. Or it does? Sorry, it does. So prescribers can now order this in the order that they would prefer. So if they want the dates around a different way, or they want the medication to come farthest to the left, you can reorder the columns around, and route is visible here. So when you're re-prescribing medications and there's an authority on the medication from previous, you can now see that when you're re-prescribing, the authority is a new authority would be required for the re-prescribe. So when I re-prescribe this medication, what's going to happen is that you have the authority required here. So it prompts the user at this point here that the authority is required, and then they're able to, on this screen, put the new authority number in once they've received it. To Michael's question, when that happens, you can see the previous authority is selected here. With regards to patients who have a DVA card, previously there wasn't a way to specify there was an ad hoc approval from the DVA for prescribing a medication, whether it was off the schedule or for private prescriptions that had ad hoc approval from the DVA. We now have the option where you're prescribing an RPBS medication. You can specify you have unlisted RPBS authority for the medication. So this might be useful where you're prescribing a private medication of a specific form, or even a form, just a medication that isn't on the PBS, and you have sought approval from the DVA to prescribe that with a benefit. You can select this option for doing so. This exists for private scripts as well as authority scripts where the authority, where the clinical indication of the patient falls outside the criteria for the authority. If that made sense, I think. Okay, so once the normal prescribing workflow is completed, so the re-prescriptions have been completed and everything like that, and the prescriber is ready to finalize the scripts, they click the regular finalize option here. As you can see, the option for SMS e-prescription has been automatically chosen based off of the patient's preference. As a prescriber, I can switch between different options, including printed prescription and printed e-prescription token, as well as don't send, print or send. SMS, when you're doing an SMS or email e-prescription, you get the address that automatically populates in here. You are able to override the field to any other number that if the patient had given the wrong number previously and you just needed a once-off change to it here. When the mobile number is updated here, it does not update the biographics. The assumption is that in most cases, it'll be the patient doesn't have access to the particular mobile at that time, but it's still the right contact number. If this needed to be updated permanently, then we'd suggest you update the biographics, and then that would flow through to here. As I said, you can do either an email or an SMS e-prescription. The other option is a printed e-prescription token. So as opposed to getting sent to the phone or the email of the patient, you can have it printed as a token. When you print an e-prescription, this is how it looks. Basically, what this is this is limited by the ADHA as to what information we can present in here. So you might notice we only have the patient's name. We don't have any date of birth or address. That's deliberate, and it's in line with the ADHA's requirement. This is not a legal script, so it's perfectly fine to be emailed to a pharmacy or given to a patient. The pharmacy would just scan this ERX barcode in order to dispense the prescription. This is not a legal script, and it should not be signed. So SMS e-prescription. When you are finalizing it, you can select the items you'd like to send. You're then presented with a preview. This is formatted in a very similar way to to a paper script. Shows you all of the details of the prescription, the patient, the prescriber's information on the top, along with the method that is being used, so SMS, and the details of the HPIO and HPII of the prescriber. When the user's confirmed it, they go next, and then the next one will come up. As you can see, the PBS approval and authority numbers are visible on here in the regular places. If the provider's made a mistake, they can cancel a review to go out and change the method that they're sending, or cancel to go and change the script. Once the prescriber is happy, You can go between the individual scripts. They can send all on the final one. This submits the scripts to ERX, and we get an acknowledgement back from ERX that the e-prescriptions were successfully transmitted. When this happens, we know the e-prescription is ready to go. The patient would have the scripts would come through very quickly onto the patient's phone or mobile. As you can see, they've already arrived on my phone. You can't see, sorry, it's blurred, but it has. Once this is done, the patient has a script and the prescription has been created. So there's no ambiguity around what's happened here. So we aren't waiting for anything at this point. The scripts are active and created.
We're on top of questions, Jack. You're all good?
On top? Okay, cool. Okay. If for some reason the patient wasn't able to receive that token, because either the address, the mobile number or the email address was incorrect, the prescriber can right-click and reprint or resend the prescription, which gives them the option of sending via SMS, email, or printed e-prescription again. It isn't possible to convert an e-prescription into a paper script, so a physical paper legal script. It's only possible to reissue it as a different method. So it can be reissued as an SMS. An SMS can be reissued as an email or a printed e-prescription as well. So it can be converted to any different type of e-prescription, but it can't be changed to a paper script. So at this point, I could resend to my email, or the patient's email. It's just been completed. If a mistake was made, the prescriber can delete the medication as if it was prescribed in error, or they can stop the medication. If they stop or delete a medication, that cancels the e-prescription. So in the current world, if you stop a script or you delete a script, unless you physically destroy the paper copy of the script is still potentially out there, or the patient has repeat authorizations that they can get a medication dispensed from. With e-prescription, if you stop or delete a medication, it cancels the e-prescription and any associated repeats. So we have reflected this. So if I was to delete this one, you will see that any outstanding e-prescription will be cancelled. And likewise, if I were to stop, any e-prescription repeats will be stopped. Whenever this happens, what that means is that at the end of the day, it can't be dispensed. Then the patient isn't notified by SMS. If they were to open the token that's been cancelled, it will show as in the prescription token that the prescription was cancelled or the prescription was cancelled. So if I were to delete this medication, you'll then see it's been deleted. And you can see here that it was successfully cancelled and the time that was successfully cancelled. And if I were to try to access that e-script now, it would say that the prescription is cancelled, as Lynn said. Like I said before, when you resend or reprint any prescription, you can either print it to a PDF or you can print it directly. The printer that it uses for a printed e-prescription token is not your printed script paper printer. It uses the letter writer printer. The reason is because we don't want to print this on PBS paper. It should be printed on plain paper. So the printer default that it'll use is the printer default for the letter writer. Sorry, because it's printing to PDF, I don't think you can see that. Effectively, when it gets printed to PDF, it will look, as I said, like this. So basically in that, what we've done is we've created a medication, any prescription. We've reissued it because of the incorrect address. And then we've also been able to stop the cancel the prescription. So those are the three core workflows: creation, cancel, and reissue. Are we on top of questions, Yvonne?
Yep, we're good. Just, Rowan, to let you know about F100s and active script lists. We'll probably do something a little bit different about that later, just to give you more information and options, because that's a little bit different to the standard one-off prescription.
Yep. Okay. So along with the prescriptions, we've also introduced 2 new reports. So we've introduced monitored medicines reporting. This report allows you to monitor the medicines that should be reported to your real-time prescription monitoring service. When you run this report, it allows you to include successfully sent S8 or S4D medications. Different states all states agree to monitor S8 medications, but different states have different subsets of S4 medications that they also monitor in addition. When you include, you can either include successful no, so that will only show you the medications sent that failed, or you can include successful yes to see them all. This is so you can monitor whether or not your prescriptions that you should be reporting to ERX are going up successfully. And it will show you the details of the medication, the last transaction, and what the status was. So it's important to keep an eye on this, or at least keep an eye on the ones that failed, because ERX is the primary way by which medicines are going to be reported to your state real-time monitoring service. Another way of monitoring medicines is you can monitor the overall status of e-prescriptions or prescriptions sent electronically. You can select between the date and time, the provider in question, and the type of e-prescription. So you include all e-prescriptions, all types, which includes printed scripts and not printed scripts, or you can limit to just email, printed, or SMS prescriptions. Either of these reports also has additional information that can be available when you export the reports to Excel. This is the script number, all of the details of the prescription, and the latest the status, as well as the time when ERX acknowledged the prescription.